December 17, 1944. Schönberg, Belgium. The frozen Ardennes ground trembled as Sergeant Curtis Adams of the 333rd Field Artillery Battalion wrote his final letter home to South Carolina. Words that would never reach his family. "They think we cannot fight," he wrote. "They believe their propaganda about inferior soldiers. Today, we will show them what black artillerymen can do." Through the winter fog, Adams had just witnessed the beginning of Germany's last desperate offensive in the West. Artillery shells screamed overhead. Panzers rolled through the forests. The Battle of the Bulge had begun, and the men of the 333rd stood directly in the path of three German armies. Nazi ideology taught that black soldiers were incapable of discipline or courage, but in the crucible of the Ardennes, the 333rd would prove them wrong, fighting with such skill and ferocity that even German commanders questioned everything they had been taught about race and war. The story of the 333rd began 2 years earlier, on August 5, 1942, at Camp Gruber, Oklahoma. Activated as a segregated African-American unit, 540 enlisted men and 30 officers trained with the M1 155mm howitzer, a 12,000-pound gun capable of firing a 95-pound shell more than 8 miles. Each crew of 11 men learned to operate their weapon with precision, intelligence, and teamwork. Under Lieutenant Colonel Harmon Kelsey, a white officer from the regular army, they mastered the complex mathematics of artillery, calculating trajectories, wind drift, elevation, and powder charges under immense pressure. Their accuracy rivaled that of any white unit in the U.S. Army. They could fire 3 rounds per minute and relocate their massive guns in less than half an hour, a vital skill under threat of German counterfire. Yet, for all their excellence, segregation followed them everywhere. Camp Gruber had separate mess halls, restrooms, and recreation areas. The soldiers trained to fight for freedom abroad while being denied equality at home. They faced the same Jim Crow discrimination they had known all their lives, but they refused to let it define them. The men of the 333rd trained harder, knowing that one mistake would be used to justify every racist stereotype. They aimed to be perfect because they had to be. In early 1944, after months of grueling preparation, the 333rd shipped out to England. On June 29th, they landed on Utah Beach in Normandy and went straight into action, providing artillery support during the Allied breakout. Their fire tore apart German fortifications across Brittany, earning praise from infantry commanders who quickly learned to trust the black gunners. Their accuracy was legendary. At the Siege of Brest, their shells shattered concrete bunkers 6 feet thick. Reports from the 2nd Infantry Division described their fire as of the highest order, accurate, professional, and fast. By the fall of 1944, their reputation had spread across the Western Front. In October, after months of intense fighting, the 333rd was sent to a supposedly quiet sector near Schönberg, Belgium. The men built log cabins, held dances, and even prepared a Christmas performance. They had no idea they were sitting on the hinge point of Hitler's coming counteroffensive. At dawn on December 16, 1944, that illusion shattered. German artillery erupted across the front, and through the fog rolled panzers and assault guns. Operation Wacht am Rhein, the Battle of the Bulge, was underway. By morning, German forces had smashed through the inexperienced 106th Infantry Division. The 333rd received frantic calls for fire. Captain William McLeod's Battery C responded first, their howitzers roaring through the fog, raining 95-pound shells onto advancing German infantry. For hours, they held back the tide. When orders came to withdraw, Batteries A and B began pulling back toward Bastogne. But Batteries C and Service Battery were told to stay behind and cover the retreat. It was a fatal decision. Surrounded and outnumbered, the men of Battery C fought until their ammunition ran out. Captain McLeod died at his gun. Technical Sergeant William Pritchett organized a last stand to buy others time to escape, dying in the process. By nightfall, the 333rd was shattered, over half its men killed or captured. Yet 11 survivors from Battery C and Service Battery managed to escape through the snow. Adams, Bradley, Davis, Forty, Green, Leatherwood, Moss, Motton, Pritchett, Stewart, and Turner. They stumbled 10 miles through waist-deep snow to the tiny hamlet of Wereth, Belgium, where a farmer named Matthias Langer sheltered them. His wife fed them, and his son remembered the black soldiers warming themselves by the fire. But a pro-German neighbor betrayed them. Soon, an SS patrol from the 1st SS Panzer Division, Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, arrived. The 11 Americans surrendered peacefully, only to be taken to a field, beaten, mutilated, bayoneted, and executed. When U.S. troops recaptured Wereth 2 months later, they found the frozen bodies, evidence of torture clear on every man. The massacre was investigated but never prosecuted. Unlike the white victims of the Malmedy massacre, the men of Wereth received no justice. But the survivors of the 333rd did not quit. The remnants joined the 969th Field Artillery Battalion in Bastogne, another black unit, where they helped defend the besieged city. With the 101st Airborne Division trapped and supplies running low, artillery would decide the battle. Together, the 333rd and 969th formed the steel backbone of Bastogne's defense. From December 20th onward, German forces encircled the town, bombarding it with artillery and launching repeated assaults. Each attack was met with thunder from the American guns. Despite freezing temperatures, dwindling ammunition, and exhaustion, the black artillerymen fired with relentless precision. They had only 10 rounds per gun per day, but every shell counted. Their forward observers dug in with the paratroopers, called in targets under fire, and the guns responded with devastating accuracy. When German tanks appeared at close range, the howitzers switched to direct fire. Artillerymen fighting like infantry. At ranges under 300 yards, their 150mm shells turned panzers into flaming wrecks. When infantry attacked across open ground, they used time-fused rounds to explode in the air, raining shrapnel on entire companies. The effect was catastrophic. The Germans broke and ran, their attacks shredded before reaching the American lines. The gunners endured unimaginable conditions, sleeping in snow, eating cold rations, urinating on their hands to keep them warm enough to load shells. Their backs ached, their fingers bled, but they never stopped firing. Even as the guns froze and mechanisms jammed, they improvised repairs and kept the batteries operational. Every man knew capture meant death. They fought not only for survival, but for respect. By the time General Patton's Third Army broke through to relieve Bastogne on December 26th, the black artillerymen had held their ground against the elite of the German army. German officers later wrote in disbelief that the American artillery was devastating in its accuracy, and that such skill could not belong to the inferior Negro troops our propaganda described. That single admission, buried in a German diary, was the ultimate vindication. The men of the 333rd Field Artillery Battalion had fought not only the Wehrmacht, but the weight of two ideologies, Nazi racism abroad and segregation at home. They proved both wrong. In the frozen forests of Belgium, under fire, starving and surrounded, they showed the world that courage, intelligence, and discipline knew no color. The 333rd paid in blood for a nation that did not yet see them as equals. But in their sacrifice, they carved a legacy of honor that would echo far beyond the snow of the Ardennes, reminding history that valor, once proven, cannot be forgotten.